This episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. You know that one friend who always finds the best travel deals, picks the right cards, and somehow ends up in first class for the price of coach? How do they do that? Well, Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover all things travel finance, like which travel cards earn their keep and which are just heavy, shiny metal, and planning group trips that won't ruin your budget or your friendships. So travel smarter and spend less. That's the key with help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. Armchair-Explorer is a part of the Voyescape podcast network. Check out all of their shows from around the world at voyescape.com.
They were probably 200 feet from us, going full speed. Somebody got sane and threw the wheel over, and they just started, turning away, and we came we must have been 40 feet away in those seas, which is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And went side by side in those big waves and then came apart. And, all the crew had been sent down for some reason to sort of the galley, and we would have all died if we'd have collided. There's no doubt.
Hey guys, welcome to Armchair Explorer. My name's Aaron Miller. I'm a travel writer and your host. And let me just start by saying today's guest is one of my writing heroes. His name's Peter Heller. He wrote one of my favorite books, actually, of all time called The River, and a load of others, including his new book, Burn, which I'm going to tell you about a bit later. Peter's also an expert kayaker. He paddles Class 5. He's done incredible expeditions in the Tamirs in Tibet, Peru, all over the world. He writes for Outside, National Geographic, basically a pretty cool guy. And as we're about to hear, he's also quite the eco-pirateer. Are you ready? Let's go. In 2005, Peter spent 6 weeks on an actual pirate ship, Jolly Roger flag and all, with a crew of eco-warriors fighting the Japanese whaling fleets in the Southern Ocean. And I mean really fighting them, not just protesting. Some people have called them eco-terrorists. Others have hailed them as heroes. You're going to have to make your own mind up. But just to set the scene a little bit and show you how serious they are, the captain of the ship, who we're going to meet in a minute, wrote a book outlining effective strategies for direct action environmental campaigns. And in it, he writes, "The Earth Warrior, like all warriors, must be prepared for death. Live each day fully as if it were your last. Hokahe, Lakota, meaning it's a good day to die." So we're just about to set sail, but before we do, I'm going to ask a favor. We're on about 150 reviews on Apple and about the same on Spotify. And that's not that much, and I really want to get to 200 before the end of the year. So if you like the show or you enjoyed today's episode, clicking those 5 stars, hopefully, is a great way to throw me a little fist bump back. You don't have to write anything. Just click the most stars that you possibly can, or whatever you think we deserve, and we'll be one more step towards our goal of 200 reviews before the end of the year. Thank you so much. Do it now. I am pausing while you do it. Okay, done it? Good. Let's get on with the show.
I was a kid who wanted to write fiction. I had to make a living. I started writing for magazines. I loved paddling. I loved adventure. So this was a joyful diversion. I went around the world on these expeditions. I met, incredible characters. I saw characters under pressure, and I saw people act with extreme grace. It's a beautiful and lovely way to make a living. And at the same time, as I traveled, I could see that the world, that the ecosphere was unraveling. It was really clear, especially doing stories on the oceans, where you go back to a place you'd been and the reef was bleached and devastated and no more fish. And so I thought, I have to take some responsibility and I have to give voice to some of these species that don't have a voice in our world.
But how he found that voice was a little unexpected. It was 2005 and Peter was at the Telluride Film Festival in Colorado when a friend introduced him to a man called Captain Paul Watson.
First thing he said, just out of nowhere, he said, "I've sunk half the Norwegian whaling fleet and half the Spanish. He then gave a talk the next day. You could have heard a pin drop, 2,000 people or something in this auditorium. And he told about his first experience trying to save a whale from Russian harpooneers and how it got harpooned next to their Zodiac and how this whale reared up gushing blood and did everything in its power to not land on their Zodiac. He could see it contorting itself because it knew that they were trying to save it. It was such a moving story. People were crying. And I came up to him afterwards and I told him how moved I was, and he invited me to come on his next campaign.
Peter quotes that speech in his book. I looked into his eye and I saw recognition, empathy. What I saw in his eye as he looked at me would change my life forever. He saved my life, and I would return the favor. True to his word, 2 years later from that moment that he was describing in the speech, this is back in 1977 now, Watson founded the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, whose mission was to protect marine life through targeted direct action. But they're not just unfurling banners. Sea Shepherd, Peter writes, makes Greenpeace look like Sunday school. He got a commission from National Geographic to write the story, flew to Melbourne, and prepared to board Watson's ship, the Farley Mowat.
I thought it was going to be just a lark. Their thing was they were going to go from Australia down to Antarctica, find the Japanese whaling fleet, and interfere, quote unquote, which is more like a military engagement. But I showed up in Melbourne. I walked out of the Victoria Pier. It was all this prosperous cafes, restaurants, umbrellas and stuff. There, tied up at the pier, was this all-black pirate ship with a Jolly Roger at the bow. And I walked up to the superstructure. It was menacing as hell. There on the outer bulkhead was all these skulls and crossbones with the names of ships. Isba 1, Isba 2, the Marild. They were all ships these guys had sunk or rammed on the high seas. And I was like, oh. And then Geert, who was a Hell's Angel tattoo artist from Amsterdam, he was the ship's artist. He took me down to my berth and he said, oh, by the way, you've got to sleep in your clothes. And I'm like, why? He said, because when the French commandos sunk the Rainbow Warrior, the Greenpeace ship, they blew it up. The photographer died because he didn't get out in time. He was putting on his clothes.
That's when Peter realized it might be a little less of a lark than he thought. The Farley Mowat was tiny compared to the enormous factory ships it would be hunting, 1/3 the length and 1/10 the tonnage. But it was kitted out well. The main deck held 3 fast inflatable Zodiac boats and 2 jet skis for fast approaches. The hull was ice reinforced, strong enough to push through moderate ice flows and ideal for ramming. There were water canyons and other canyons brilliantly armed with pie filling to prevent boarding. But the overall impression, Peter says, was that the Farley was a ship of war.
We left Melbourne with a crew of 44 and 3 days past Hobart in Tasmania, where they picked up a helicopter. We were out in the high seas, no law. The welders came out on deck and welded a huge razor-sharp, triple reinforced steel blade on the starboard bow. And that's when I knew this was a serious assignment and that these guys were deadly serious. This thing was made to rip open the hulls of Japanese whaling ships on the high seas, and that all 44 people were committed to die to save a whale, except for me. I mean, I was the only one with a dry suit on the ship, and I was designated as the rescue swimmer. I had flippers and a dry suit, and so if someone went overboard, I was the one to jump in, and I became completely profoundly moved that there were 44 people on one little old trawler. I mean, it looked menacing, but it was a decades-old fishing trawler with a patched hull in 30, 40-foot seas. It was the worst Antarctic December anybody had remembered. There was force 8 gale after force 8 gale. I was profoundly moved that these people were willing to stand up for another species and put their lives on the line.
Whales are more like us than you might think. They have complex social lives, they forge deep social bonds, and recent studies have shown that they do feel emotion. They have the same neural network that we do for expressing empathy and love and grief and suffering. And yet, despite this and rapidly declining numbers and international protection, they continue to be killed illegally or under the guise of bogus research in their thousands each year. As far as Watson and the crew of the Farley were concerned, it was a war, and they weren't prepared to sit around and watch anymore. After Hobart and Tasmania, they continued south towards Antarctica, past monument valleys of icebergs, as Peter describes them, until they hit one of the worst storms this part of the Southern Ocean had ever seen. Just want to take a second from the story right now to give a quick shout out for our guest today, Peter Heller, and his new book, Burn. Peter's a beautiful writer, but what makes him unique and what I love most about reading his stuff is that he's also a bona fide outdoorsman, and that spirit is infused in all of his writing. It's like reading a piece of outdoor writing with the suspense of a thriller thrown in. I think you'll like his stuff. I really do. So check out peterhellerauthor.com to find out more. And check out that new book, Burn, while you're at it, which, no spoilers, is about a pair of friends that come out of a 2-week hunting trip deep off-grid in the Maine woods and find burnt-out towns, dead bodies, all the communications have been cut, and they have no idea what happened. Okay, thanks, Peter. Let's get back to the show.
It was wild, and you just knew you were on your own. And we were like, you're in the bridge. I'm standing next to Paul Watson. I'm wedged because I write down everything everyone says, so I need free hands. I am wedged between the bulkhead and the radar table, just using my thighs to hold me in there. The boat is on the inclinometer, is going 35 degrees side to side. People are flying across the bridge. You come over a wave, you come plunging, surfing down, you hit the bottom, the next wave starts coming over the bow. It's green water. Green water comes over the bridge, washes over the windows. Several seconds, you are a complete submarine. And there is ice in the water. If you hit a big chunk of ice, you're friggin' finished. It was unbelievable. It's amazing that we survived that. And you'd come out, and then you'd come out and you'd look, and there'd be an albatross like sailing against the face of the next 30-foot wave, and it would like rise up, and it would hit that, whatever knot wind, that 70-knot wind or whatever it was, and it would just tear downstream, and it was, you could tell it was having fun, and you're sitting there going, I really hope I survive the next hour. It was wild.
And it was in the midst of this storm that 2 blips appeared on the radar. One was a Greenpeace vessel, the Esperanza, who were also there to harass the Japanese fleet. The other, the Nishin Maru, an 8,000-ton Japanese factory ship that butchered and packed the slaughtered whales. The problem was, Watson's top speed on his old boat was only 9 knots. The Nishin Maru could do 25. There was no way they would catch them in a straight race. But Watson had an ace up his sleeve.
There was a mole on Greenpeace who started giving Watson the position of the Japanese fleet. And Watson, being a very canny commander and navigator, figured out a way to catch up with them and hide among the icebergs and stuff so he wouldn't be detected by their radar. And one day, we got really close. And we were within like striking distance and started following the Nishin Maru. The Nishin Maru thought we were the Greenpeace ship. We were in 30-foot seas in a gale. And they were out ahead, and somebody must have had binoculars out because they saw it was the Farley Mowat, all-black eco-pirate ship under its Jolly Roger. And I think they had been harried. I mean, Watson had, when he could, he had gotten close, and he'd pushed them, interfered. And the captain was sick of it. He was like, all right, you want to fight? And I'll never forget this. This is one of the images of my entire life that is seared into my soul. That huge factory ship, I remember in those giant seas, just turned sideways and kind of came slowly. And we were on this 2 vectors that were on collision course. I was like enthralled. And for some reason, I told Watson, you got this. Ram him. I wanted a good story, right? As we came, you could hear their warning siren blasting. Their hull must have been 25 feet up to the prow. You could see that giant hull coming over a wave, crashing down, tearing huge chunks of ocean that just evaporated in the gale force wind. It was like unbelievably intimidating. And here it came, right towards us. We were all coming to collision. And then at the very last, they were probably 200 feet from us, going full speed. Somebody got sane and threw the wheel over, and they just started, turning away, and we came we must have been 40 feet away in those seas, which is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And went side by side in those big waves and then came apart, and we would have all died if we'd have collided. There's no doubt. Watson then again, a couple of weeks later caught up with them and actually rammed one of their tenders, a big tender ship, and so frightened them, he rammed them with the blade. The blade crumpled like it was made of tinfoil, which maybe is what it was designed to do. I don't know. It made a key scratch on their hull, but it so freaked them out. Nobody wants to be attacked on the high seas in that kind of weather. And they went home. And Watson disrupted their whaling quota was 935 minke whales. I think they got 400, and then they quit. It was too dangerous for them.
There were other skirmishes and encounters, storms and moments of bliss and tragedy. But soon they had to turn home. They'd been out for over a month and were running out of fuel. They had achieved what they set out to do. They'd saved hundreds of whales from slaughter that season. But thousands more would be killed next season and the season after. It's simply too big an area and too well funded an industry for one eco-pirate ship to handle alone. But as Captain Watson said, we don't do what we do because we figured out the odds or that we're going to win or lose. We do it because it is the right thing to do.
Really what he was about, I think, with all those crazy sort of sensational tactics with the pirate flag and all that and the can opener they called the blade, I think what it really was to raise awareness. He was sensational so that he could raise awareness about the crisis of the oceans. And he always said, look, if the most charismatic species in the ocean, which are the whales, can't be saved in an internationally ordained whale sanctuary, this was a whale sanctuary, in contravention of a 1986 international moratorium on whaling, if they can't be saved, what chance does a humble sea cucumber have? He cared about all the lives of the ocean. He saw the crisis of the oceans, what was happening. And this was his tactic to raise awareness. And I thought it was profoundly brave and selfless and moving. And I ended up writing a story. I don't think I was very objective. I thought these were amazing people. And I'll make sort of this the last image from that trip, but we had a whale horn, and it would blow anytime somebody on deck saw a whale. Because that's what we were there for. People on that ship loved whales. And they would come out on deck and say hi to the whale. One day at 2 a.m, it blew, and so it's still, it's Antarctic summer, so it's light, it's low light. It blew, I came on deck, and all the way to the horizon, I saw spouts. And it was a giant migration of humpback whales. And they were spouting to the horizon, and I looked down over the rail, and there was a mama humpback. They knew the difference between the harpoon ships and the Japanese ships and us. They would flee. Anytime they saw, they would flee from the Japanese ships. This mother humpback whale was riding feet from the side of our ship with her calf just outside of her. She rolled up, I looked right in her eye, and it was almost like this thing was like, thank you. And it was one of the most moving experiences of my life.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for taking us on board the Farley Mowat and to the front line of the battle at the bottom of the world to save the planet's largest mammals. And I just want to note this. On July 21st of this year, Captain Paul Watson was arrested in Greenland where he'd stopped to refuel due to an international warrant issued by Japan related to this anti-whaling campaign and others since. He is currently, right now, as you're listening to this, in jail, waiting to find out if he will be extradited to Japan, where he faces up to 15 years in prison. I also urge you to check out some of Peter's writings, especially that latest book, Burn. Really enjoying that one. Go to peterhellerauthor.com for a full list of all his novels and other writing. And remember, if you can, please hit that 5-star review. I'm on a mission to make it to 200 reviews by the end of the year. So if you can help, that would be hugely appreciated. So keep sailing the high seas, find your pirate ship, fight for what you believe in, and believe it will come true. Because the more we look for wonder in the world, the more the wonder of the world becomes a part of who we are. Dare to be truly alive. Armchair Explorer is produced by Armchair Productions. Find our other shows at armchair-productions.com. My name's Aaron Miller. I write, present, and produce the show. Charles Tyree does the audio editing and sound design. Our theme music is by the artist Sweet Chat. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.
Quick question. Do you want travel tips from people who have actually been there?
Our show is co-hosted by Tim Johnson, an award-winning travel journalist who's been to more than 145 countries around the world. And I'm David Brody, the other co-host who's been travel podcasting for 20 years while traveling to 50-plus countries around the world.
In about 10 or 20 minutes per show, we break down a destination with the kind of insight you usually only get from long guidebooks or hours of research.
So if you want expert advice, zero fluff, and travel inspiration that you can actually use, search for Travel in 10 wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can also find us at boyescape.com.
Hi, I'm Pauline Fromer, host of the Fromer's Travel Podcast. We post new episodes weekly, detailing the kinds of money-saving tips and cultural insights that will make your trips richer without making you significantly poorer. We do so by interviewing real travel experts like TV host Samantha Brown, Fromer's authors from around the globe, and such public figures as Free Solo's Alex Honnold. It's a fun travel party. I hope you can join us.